Hi, my name is Linda Shannon and I am in the EDU2200 class. And this is my reflection paper of week 5. The date is September 16th, 2012. To begin, there are multiple roles and interpreting frames that interpreters work in. They are called the ally, helper, conduit, machine, communication facilitation, and bilingual bicultural philosophies. Prior to the establishment of RID, interpreters adopted the helper philosophy, but due to the lack of education and resources in the area of interpreting, the people who performed this task were mostly friends, family, clergy, etc. It wasn't until people started to realize that there were oppressive qualities to this philosophy that they changed their mode of interpreting to become more like conduits or machines. In this frame, the interpreters communicated more like robots, assuming no responsibility for the interaction or dynamics between the clients. It wasn't until the mid-1970s that this philosophical frame transformed into the communication facilitation philosophy. The interpreters in this frame were more aware of the need for appropriate placement, lighting, background, etc., but their output still took on the role of the machine. They also held to the belief system that English was superior over ASL. Eventually, a middle ground between the help frame and the conduit frame emerged, called the bilingual bicultural philosophy. The Bi philosophy, which is widely accepted today, believes that ASL is a real language and that deaf people are members of an oppressed group. In addition, in contrast to the conduit philosophy, they also recognize the importance of understanding the cultural schemas of those involved in the interpreting process. Though some of the philosophies have been given a bad rap in the past, there are some situations in which an interpreter may still need to communicate between them. As an example, imagine going to a physical therapist's office with a deaf client who has been asked by the doctor to perform a specific set of exercises. Imagine that the doctor walks away and you notice that your client is performing the exercises all wrong. And in fact, you're aware that what they are doing may actually hurt them. As the interpreter, you may feel the desire to help by reiterating what the doctor has said so that the person does not injure themselves by doing it incorrectly. Is this unethical? As an interpreter, it is very important to reevaluate yourself in regards to ethics. If I personally am ever unsure, I resort to looking up the Code of Ethics online at the RID website, or I may even ask a more experienced interpreter to give me their opinion. From the moment I first realized I wanted to learn ASL and become an interpreter, I've always been open-minded and eager to soak up whatever information or skills that presented themselves to me. I really never had any expectations about interpreting. I knew interpreting was an incredibly hard career path to choose. As I began my journey, I was fortunate enough to have had help from a deaf friend who was also a graduate from Gallaudet University. She gave me a great foundation in ASL and deaf culture from which I am anxious to expand. I know the goal of becoming a highly proficient interpreter is attainable, but I'm also honest with myself that it is going to be a long and arduous task. Becoming fluent in ASL and being able to know when it is appropriate to use the different philosophies is only one part of the interpreting process that I need to master. In addition, there are processes within the interpreter's brain that I need to perfect. Our textbook states, while each model is unique, they all attempt to portray the largely invisible cognitive processes required to take an utterance from one language culture and render a culturally and linguistically equivalent utterance in the target language. That's from page 233 of the Humphrey and Alcorn. The concept of taking in a source language and being able to cognitively process it and then get it back out there in the target language with very little lag time so that dynamic equivalency can be achieved in as close as possible real time is a skill that I covet. In regards to this class, I have learned many new concepts, but the idea that ASL is a direct language and English is indirect is a concept that I never took time to ponder. ASL as a direct language is reality-oriented and highly descriptive. According to our book, information is transmitted in signs that reflect explicit and specific meanings. That's from page 196. The English language, on the other hand, is less descriptive. As an example, ASL users will use expansions and reductions in their signing to add or subtract descriptive qualities to their conversations. If the source language, English, says something like, "The dog got out of the tub and he made a mess all over the bathroom," the target language, ASL, will add more descriptive signs to describe the act of the dog getting out of the tub. The dog scrambled out of the tub and fell on the floor, shook all over, rubbed himself on the towel, got hair on the walls, etc. I've also learned that I need to be careful not to drop source language form before making the transition to the target language. It is very easy as an English speaker to revert back to the source language out of laziness, feeling rushed, or not understanding the message conveyed. But I am aware this will most likely result in miscommunication. As an interpreter, I have important responsibilities as a communication liaison between two parties and two cultures. My goal, therefore, is to communicate clearly and concisely by becoming skilled in both languages and cultures. As I said in the beginning of this paper, I have never had any expectations of what being an interpreter meant. I only knew that to be proficient at it, I would need to obtain a sufficient amount of knowledge, wisdom, practice, guidance, etc. A majority of the hearing population believes that to be an interpreter, you only need to be a good listener and someone who can repeat what is said in a word-for-word sign language form. This, unfortunately, is so far from the truth. To be a good interpreter, you need to study ASL and the other sign support speech systems. You need to spend time in the deaf world getting to know their culture. You need to keep up your language skills by attending conferences and other forms of educational opportunities throughout your career. You need to have the mental and physical aptitude to be able to listen to the source language and identify deep structure meaning within the contextual schema, and then formulate an equivalent target language message and produce it in a target language interpretation. And in everything you do, you need to follow a strict code of ethics. So, as you can see, being an interpreter is not an easy job. It requires determination, dedication, and professionalism. And my references are from Alcorn, BJ, and Humphreys, J.H., 2007 in the book So You Want to Be an Interpreter, An Introduction to Sign Language Interpreting. Renton, H&H Publishing Company. Thank you.